On, babe.
Hello, it's the 15th of May 2016 and I don't have time to change and look real pretty.
Because
The dollar has been rejected worldwide as Putin cuts oil and gas from flowing into Europe. We watched a ship leave the Tacoma port today full. Now, it was not exporting anything. It was leaving with what it came into port with. We believe that the ship came in and they couldn't pay in gold or silver and they wanted to pay in dollars, and they turned around and they left. The dollar has been rejected worldwide. Now, we're going to read you some news stories you can find. We're not even going to reference this. You'll just have to find them. Russia throws down the gauntlet. Energy supply to Europe cut off. Petro dollar has abandoned as currency war escalates. Russia has abandoned the petro dollar. Just like I told James Woosley back in 2007, 2008, the petrodollar will eventually go away. You have got to prepare. But he was up against some very powerful corporate banksters. Russia cut off natural gas supply to Europe as disputes with Ukraine escalate. Now, in the 1991 treaty that broke the Ukraine and all of the other 14 countries away from Russia, if a state within a nation votes to rejoin Russia, it has that right. Both Donetsk and Lugansk have voted to rejoin Russia. So what was the U.S. response? The 8th of February last year, they torched off a nuke and sent 3 more on the way to Russia. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. Also, the Crimean Peninsula voted 95-1 or 95% to rejoin Mother Russia. And in the Treaty of 1991, they have that right. The Ukraine government must back off. TASS news agency said EU sanctions on Russia not likely to be lifted. Merkel looked at Putin and said, "We're not the sanctions against Russia aren't going to be lifted." So what does Russia do? Fine, we won't accept the petrodollar. We won't accept the dollar at all. And since the euro is pegged to the dollar, now we were told that the euro would have this crisis, and we've been talking about this in the intelligence briefings. The euro would have the crisis, the euro would fall, and then 2 weeks later exactly is planned for the dollar to fall. Now, we don't know if we've reached this time, but we think we have reached this time. We all know that President Putin claimed that Queen Elizabeth was a draconian. Her eyes turned into slits. It says President Putin claims Queen Elizabeth is not human. These are all stories you can look up. And in the last story, this came from Russian TV, and you'll have to do this research on your own. Putin says the dollar is set to collapse on the 28th of May. Can you believe that Merkel would... first she says we're not going to have any more refugees coming into Germany. Then she opens the door, begins to throw lots of Social Security and welfare at them. And they're raping the people. They have no morals. These are the prisoners from Saudi Arabia. These are the prisoners from Yemen. These are evil people. And then, of course, Putin also said if it's Hillary Clinton, it's war. And he launched his first 12-pack of nuclear missiles. They're now putting nuclear weapons in space. They've been doing that all along, but they're putting in a lot more nuclear weapons in space right now. Venezuelan food shipments. What you're looking at in Venezuela is what is planned for in America. That's why we talk about Food for Liberty. That's why we have William Mount Cooking. That's why we talk about getting Ronnie stuff. That's why we talk about Citricare and Immunosys. Be ready, folks, because when this comes down, you want a relationship with the company. So when you pick up the phone, the food is delivered to your front door. You don't have to go to the grocery stores. You don't have to put up with the riots. UPS will get through. The whole attack on UPS is the U.S. government trying to seize UPS. They want their $4 billion, and they want their trucks to deliver their drugs and deliver their refugees. They're already using UPS flights to bring in the refugees. If there's no natural, I don't know if any of you have been to Europe, but if there's no natural gas, there's no factories. If there's no factories, no working. No working, no money. No money, nobody can buy anything. So when they cut off the natural gas, all of Europe is dependent on natural gas. Now, you would think that if they cut off the natural gas now in May, with the weather still being cold, they would plug in a 1,500-watt heater. In the Ukraine, there was one department store, Zoom. It had 4 1,500-watt heaters. The family I was staying with, they're a great family, but they'd never used one. They don't know what plug to plug it into. In Europe, they're so dependent on the government, they don't know when they cut off the gas how to plug in a 1,500-watt heater. There's a large sector of them that don't know how to, if it's if it's 20 degrees out, you leave the water running so your pipes don't freeze. They don't know these things, a lot of them. There's a lot of really intelligent Europeans, but there's also a lot of them so dependent on the government that they don't know how to put it, so they're going to basically freeze. The houses are going to get moldy and get rotten. I can't believe Merkel said what she said. She is Adolf Hitler's daughter, by the way. She's the head of Germany right now. The reason the Ukraine can't join, they can't join the EU is because their power lines don't match the European Union. They would have to rebuild their power lines because their main towers that we see, you know, the big, huge towers, Jane, with the big metal bases, a lot of them are falling over. Now, I dated the gal who was part of the United Nations, and she was trying to tie the European lines into Europe. But there was so much resistance because you have to match the computer system, so all your sine waves match, and Ukraine was not mentally capable of doing it. They get there at work, you see them in Kiev, they get there at 10 in the morning and they leave at 3 or 4 in the afternoon. How do you get any work done when you get there at 10 in the morning and you leave at 3 and you take a 2-hour lunch? You don't get any work done. They have been under the thumb of communism, socialism, capitalism, any ism takes your rights away. They have been under the guise of an ism ever since before they were born. They've never been free. They don't understand freedom. So most government workers are maybe put in 3 hours a day. Well, how do you learn a computer program to sync the sine waves of the power lines? That's why they can't join the European Union, because they can't match the power waves. They're not mentally there, and their lines, literally, the main towers are falling over. A good wind, and you're going to lose the Ukrainian power. Chernobyl was in the Ukraine, for God's sakes. But we think it was the United States that sabotaged the Ukrainian nuclear reactor, creating fire. That cargo ship, it left, and it was full, Jim. You looked at it, it was right up to the waterline. Completely full. Those Connexes weren't even unloaded in the Tacoma port. I don't know how far they're going to be able to go before God intervenes, which is why we're calling you to prayer tonight. The churches are told what to do. They're all 501c3s. The CAA or the government sends in somebody and says, you will preach this or else. I don't know if you know this.
There are no leaders in the church.
There are a bunch of wimpy...
They are selling their congregation down the road.
They all
No
have.
morals.
I got involved in Nazarene Church, and we had people who were in their 70s who couldn't afford to buy meat for 6 months. And that church in Enumclaw, Washington, with 3 members who were over 60, who couldn't afford to buy a pound of beef but every 6 months. That church was giving $250,000 a year to the World Council on Churches because, by God, they were going to support the World Council of Churches to change the Bible, and they didn't give a hoot about the people in their own church. And you think they're going to lead you down the road to anything? You are sorely mistaken. All they want is your money. Go to a church service and tell me if they don't ask for money. And the preacher's only up there for what, 3 minutes, and he's asking for money? They prostrated themselves before Lucifer. Every one of them. They're told what to say. And I've spoken with a lot of people in the churches. We had a guy in from the government tell us what to do. We have to talk about Noah and the flood. We have to talk about this. We can't diverge from the Bible. We got to use the King James Version. We can't read the real version in Hebrew and the Greek, because if we do, we'll be violating our 503c charter, blah, 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 blah. What a bunch of garbage. You know, just create a tax-free business. Don't call it a church. You're prostrating yourselves right to Lucifer. So this is what's going on. The dollar has been rejected worldwide as of today now. A ship is leaving Tacoma Port full, and it wasn't with exports. And Putin has cut the gas, and the United States is trying to go around Putin with stainless steel tubes they used in World War II. Flexible stainless steel. You can find it on the internet. And the stainless steel tubes were run into almost to Paris to supply the Allied ground forces with gasoline. So they came, the oil came from Norway, and then from Britain it went underground all the way almost to Paris in stainless steel. They were probably about this big around. Flexible stainless steel, Jane. They had that in 1942. Well, heck, in 1942 they were flying the water-powered P-51 aircraft. Anyway, thank you very much. This whole thing about oil wouldn't be needed if we were able to do what we were going to do in the first place. Anyway, thank you very much. There is no oil in Europe. I don't even know how to pray. Just pray that God takes care of your family, because when the dollar is rejected worldwide, that's when things will hit the fan. U.S. savings bond went into default a week and a half ago with Puerto Rico. We're in default. The United States Treasury is in full default. Federal Reserve System is in full default. Anyway, any comments?
Other people are kept in the dark.
Yeah, you will not see this on the internet. You will not see this on YouTube, Russian TV, Al Jazeera TV, Iranian TV, Chinese TV. 180 nations are broadcasting it, but you will not see it in the United States, Canada. You will not see it in England. You will not see it in New Zealand or Australia or Japan. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. It's kind of an emergency alert, but we thought you would want to be the first ones to know. And there's an article about Chase Manhattan getting ready to close the stores. Their ATMs didn't work today. So you might want to start considering, if you have large amounts of cash, putting it in a safe, not keeping it in the bank. And clear out your safe deposit box, because when that bank shuts its door, the FBI has ruled that what's in the safe deposit box belongs to the bank, not you. And the FDIC insurance is not for you anymore, according to the FBI. It is for the bank stockholders. So if you are a preferred bank stockholder and a bank goes down, you get no money, but the preferred stockholders, the bondholders, and the preferred stockholders and the stockholders. It's in that order. The bonds, the preferred stock, and the stock. You get nothing. Nothing. So be prepared. We have a film, Be Ready. Thank you very much for listening. And we appreciate your comments, especially on the new channel, William Mount Cooking. Jane and I are having a lot of fun. We made some baby food really inexpensively. We're going to try to do that with Food for Liberty, because we want the food. We want you to be ready for what's coming. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. God bless, and you have a wonderful night.